Okay, bass clarinetists, this tip is for you guys. As a high school bass clarinetist, I hope you're already good at this. But when I'm judging a bass clarinet room, one of the things I need to hear is that you can cross from the throat tones up to the second register just as easily and smoothly as any clarinet player can. And there's a couple things that will prevent you from doing so. One, if your instrument's out of alignment, and in some respects, you gotta have that. You gotta have your horn checked out before you go for an audition. I would highly recommend. Okay, because sometimes you might think there's something wrong with you when it's just that there's a mechanism that's out of alignment. Okay, but assuming your instrument's in proper working condition. Now in the first measure here, they've asked for a crescendo, and that kind of helps a little bit. But what I'm going to suggest to you is that from the first note, you need to be blowing in a way that allows the second note, the B, to speak. So if you play the B by itself, there's huge amount of the pipe vibrating. It's more resistance. We kind of feel like we have to lean into it. You need to be blowing like that on the first note. And every single time you cross up in the register is an opportunity to show that you can do it seamlessly, just as easily as any clarinet player can. Okay? Good luck. Triplet quarter notes over 2 beats are usually guessed at. And usually people guess wrong. What ends up happening is the first 2 of the triplet quarter notes end up being too long, and the third one plays catch up. That's the way most people play triplet quarter notes. So we have to subdivide. Okay, here's 80 beats per minute. Just think about regular triplets. Those are triplet eighths. Okay. Now, to line up the triplet eighths with the triplet quarter notes, you need to put emphasis on every other triplet. And if you do that, your triplet quarter notes will be great. So when I'm teaching these etudes, I like to start with the assumption that everything is legato unless specified otherwise. And we do have accents that are pretty clearly designated in the piece, but I want to talk about measure 6 and measure 22, which are effectively the same measure. These are the only measures that have staccato at all, and that staccato is at the end of a tie. We're going to talk about that in a moment. The beginning of measure 6 and 22 both have the marcato marking on the first note of the measure. This is a combination of an accent and a staccato. So let's review what the other options are. So first, we could just have had a legato eighth note at the beginning of measure 6. Okay? And now, we could have had just a staccato eighth note at the beginning of measure 6. But this is a staccato plus an accent. Now, the staccato. The staccato dot on beat 4 is asking you to stop the reed with your tongue on beat 4. So if you are familiar with the stop staccato technique, this is going to be easier. So stop staccato sounds like this. I'm going to keep my wind dead steady, and my tongue is creating the silence by stopping the reed. Throughout all of that, I was blowing non-stop. So in this case, that wouldn't be so bad. What's tricky is that we then have to continue tonguing 16th notes and accenting 16th note number 2. So this is probably worth some time playing slowly and really picky, careful. If you want to try to tie all those details together. So the composer has given you a lot of specific instructions about dynamics, okay? This is how we make the music expressive. Even though the composer has given us a lot of very specific dynamics, for example, in the beginning of the piece, I'm at a mezzo forte. In measure 3, I'm at a mezzo piano. So I'm really making sure that my beginning of measure 3 is softer than my start of the piece, which is mezzo forte. So even though there are a lot of instructions, you have a lot of choices to make about how you wish to employ those markings. And what I mean by that is you decide when there's a crescendo, how much you crescendo, and how quickly you crescendo. And in some respect, let's look at the second measure. I mean, it says forte at the beginning of the measure, but you might really feel like the dotted quarter note is more important than the first note of the measure. So you might that would sound good. Another option would be to take it literally and decide that the whole beats 1, 2, and 3 of the second measure are loud and equally loud. But really what I'm trying to suggest to you is that you need to figure out a way to make it sound like your own piece of music and not be afraid to do things that are slightly different than what's on the page. Try to find a creative way to make it yours. That will definitely be something that the judges usually enjoy. If you find a way to play it that's employing the rules they've given you, but you find a way to make it yours, you definitely are going to have a more convincing performance. Good luck.